speakers in. This time we've kind of kept it DCU centric because we're all really busy in the run up to this, so we kept it to local people that we knew would give a very good talk, right? Yes. Okay, so I'll be about half an hour talking about some of the interesting quantified self-based work we do in DCU, and then we'll have Tu and Kim to talk about their individual projects on stress detection and also projects on, I guess, reading quality detection. Yeah, so perfect. Okay, so without further ado, let's move on ahead. And this talk is about lifelogging. We call it a peculiar form of quantified self. It's a little bit different to what you would be used to in terms of quantified self, and you'll see why in a moment. I want to acknowledge that there's actually a very big team behind all this work. And that's my research team, minus a few people I've left in the last year or two. All these people have built what you see in this presentation today. Right? So lots of people from all around the world, Vietnam, Ireland, China, Syria, India, Korea, Thailand, lots of international people doing PhDs, building what I think is really, really cool technologies. So please enjoy it. So in the next half an hour, I'm going to talk briefly about AI and health, just as setting the scene. Then I'm going to talk about lifelogs and what we mean by lifelogs. Then I'm going to talk about personal search and how we support personal search, where the Google of our vision is you. We search through your life to find stuff that's interesting to you. And then, of course, concerns and challenges around about this, because as far as I can see, we're on an inevitable pathway towards this being a normal part of daily life. And what's all the concerns and challenges around about that? Because technology doesn't exist in isolation of society. So AI and health, lots of cool stuff happening in terms of healthcare, in terms of personalized treatment, diagnosis, etc. We focus on personal data and self-quantification. Why is that? Well, in reality, and even this slide's pretty old, in the current marketplace, no matter what you want to gather in terms of data about yourself, there is a piece of technology available to gather that. Blood sugar, footsteps, stress levels, whatever it is, there are ways to do this. So we have huge amounts of data available if we want about our personal activities in healthcare. And here's an example of when that's really, really useful from a number of years ago. Fitbit. Most people have come across Fitbit, right? Many of us probably aware of Fitbits right now. Fitbit decided to do a study a number of years ago to try to understand the impact of different lifestyle activities on resting heart rate. Because resting heart rate, the rate your heart beats when you're resting, is actually a very good indicator of longevity. So how long will you live? So they took a few factors into account. For example, gender and age. And you see the gender, women and men, and the resting heart rates. Lower your resting heart rate, the better. Okay. So when you're in your early to mid 20s, your lowest resting heart rate, you're at your essentially healthiest. As you take exercise, the more minutes of exercise you do every week, the lower your resting heart rate up to a point. And what I think is really interesting is resting heart rate with sleep. That the optimal sleep, both for men and women, is about 6.5 to 7 hours per night. Not 8 hours like we're told. To maximize the resting heart rate, aim for 7 hours, and you're doing really, really well. And that's a really good example. There's a link there if anybody wants to write it down. It's just a bit long, okay, just do a Google search. They did this by analyzing 150 billion hours of people's data, okay, coming off the smartwatches. Okay. They knew our sleep patterns because they knew when we were sleeping. They knew our resting heart rate from the watch. Easy to do this kind of work. And that's why quantified self, as we see it, is really, really useful. Right? And that's the normal view of quantified self. You sense and analyze yourself using numbers. You convert yourself in some way into a quantification. You are numbers, heart rate, sleep patterns, whatever it is. And you use that in some way to experiment, have interventions that make your life healthier and better. Now, what I'm talking about is not that. It's the next level up. It's digital twinning, it's lifelogging. It's capturing as much as you can about your life experience. Not just your heart rate or your sleep or your number of footsteps. It's as much as we can get. If we get as much as we can get into our lifelog, then we can start to build new tools that don't otherwise exist. Support for your memory. Okay? We don't have memory support tools. You got diaries, but who uses diaries? Okay? Whereas my eyes are rubbish, so I wear glasses. If your ears are bad, you wear hearing aids, right? If your memory is bad, you suffer. It doesn't have to be that way. So, we think we have many positive use cases of lifelogs. Starting off with my favorite, which is the personal retrieval engine. My PhD back in the day was building search engines. We built the first Irish language search engine nobody ever used, but we were building search engines. And now we're looking at building personal search engines, searching yourself. Not searching the web or searching archives of documents, searching yourself. Allows us to build very interesting personal assistants, healthcare agents, safety and security agents, personal knowledge graphs. So many things you can do when you have access to your own data. And that's the point. In an ideal world for a lifelogger, you capture everything. You capture what you see, you capture what you hear, you capture what you speak, you capture where you go, you capture how you go there, you capture your biometrics, your speech, your attention even. And we can capture all this different information into a lifelog nowadays if we want to do that. Okay? It's not that difficult to do, it's not that expensive to do. In reality, we can capture 24/7 from wearables, our smartwatches, biometrics, our information accesses on our computers, our devices, our phones. We can capture 4K video if we want all day, but it's 1.37 terabytes, so it's not a lot of data. But if we capture it down to much lower frame rates, we can get really good information about what we see. If you capture a picture from your viewpoint here, 2 or 3 times a minute, you capture everything. You capture who you talk to, you capture what you eat, you capture did you take your medication, you capture all these different things that become important. And other data takes a lot less space, but this is all feasible to do. And why do we do this? Well, here's 3 examples of work we've done in the past few years that actually show the value of this kind of data. So here's one that we've done with partners in New Zealand, and some of the guys here work on this project. We had partners in the Department of Public Health at a university in New Zealand and also in Melbourne in Australia. And they wanted to know, when a doctor sends a patient home from hospital, and they give them some instructions like, take your medication 3 times a day, make sure you drink plenty of water, blah, 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 whatever the details are. Do the patients actually do it? If the doctor asks the patients, and asks the patients, well, did you take your medication? And they go, yeah, of course I did. Exactly on time. And we know that this is a big problem because, believe it or not, some medications that the Irish government give to patients here for free cost 250,000 euros per year. And we want to know, or the Irish government particularly wants to know, if those patients taking these really expensive medications and putting them in the closet because they're really expensive. Right? We want them to be used. And this was the idea behind this project. So what they did was they took patients who were leaving hospital, especially elderly living alone people, and they put a camera on them, just like this one here. And they said to the people, wear the camera every day for a week and then come back. And then they could start to question the people about what you did and how did that match up to what the camera said. Now, the problem was, you take 50 people wearing camera for a week, or in our case really a month, that's millions of images, right? Because the camera takes 2,000 images a day. We couldn't actually possibly do that manually because it would take too long. So what we actually ended up doing was we ended up building a search engine over the data to say, how often did Mary take her medication when she went home every day? What time of day did she take her medication? Did she have social interactions? Did she go out for a walk? Did she do the clothes washing? And all of this can be done by software now, right? Not by asking people questions. That's one good reason. Another reason, an epidemiological study. Also, for some reason, we tend to work with people in the other side of the world for this. And these are partners in New Zealand again, and Australia. And they wanted to understand, first of all, in Australia and New Zealand, about the exposure of children to fast food advertising. How often do children see fast food advertising every day? You take a child in, you say, when did you see the Coca-Cola logo? I don't know. When did you see the Cadbury's chocolate logo? I don't know. Okay. So we put cameras on 200 school children, sent them out for 5 days with GPS devices. They came back in, gave us millions of images again, right, from the wearable cameras automatically taking pictures, and then we built a search engine again. That allowed the researchers in the Department of Public Health in Deakin University, Deakin University in Australia, to analyse for fast food advertising. And they realised that children were exposed to non-core, i.e. fast food advertising, 27.3 times a day. Now, you ask somebody that, they're going to say, oh, once or twice a day. 27.3 times a day. They looked at other aspects of this as well, because once you have the data, you can then do different kind of queries. Alcohol, dangerous situations, smoking, and realised children were exposed to alcohol 85% of their time as they went to universities. Oh, no, went to the universities, went to supermarkets. Probably 100% of the time to universities. Went to supermarkets, and papers are linked there. The same software was then used by partners in the University of Peking in China who wanted to understand the dietary intake of Chinese teenagers. Took our same software and analysed it with Chinese people's data. And finally, I want to show you an example of memory support. Way back 16 years ago, our partners in the UK wanted to build memory support tools. In one particular study, Mrs. B, because people are not going to be identified, Mrs. B couldn't remember what happened yesterday, in theory. Okay? She had whatever kind of memory disease she had, difficulty she had. After wearing a camera and analysing and looking at the summary of her day, the next day, she could remember 80% of her events the following day, as opposed to 0. In fact, as she was trained to look at the events at the end of the day, a week later, a month later, Mrs. B was able to recall her past life experience better than you or I, just by having access to data, right? And the data is not just normal data, the data is what she saw from her point of view with wearable cameras. You're reinforcing a memory. So looking at those 3 examples, there's a value in having detailed, quantified self-data, right? Just in those 3 simple examples. So let's look at what we're doing here. We try to replicate people using wearable digital sensors. We replicate everything you do into a personal search engine. Because data is now cheap, sensors are cheap, storage is cheap, and AI is now cheap, right? AI is available to analyze data and extract value. If you had to look at 1 million pictures and write what was happening in them, it would take you months. Our AI tools to analyze 1 million images takes how long? To build an embedding model? Seconds. Totally different type of challenge. And we always assume that since storage is cheap, we can fit a lifetime on a $100 hard drive. 80 years on a $100 hard drive. So, this is not new. Way back in 1945, Vannevar Bush, an American scientist and advisor to the US president, hypothesized a lifelog. Using technology of the time, it was microfilm, it was desks, of course you could never build it, but the concept was there. The concept of hyperlinks, as we have in the World Wide Web, was there. The concept of wearable cameras walking around taking a picture with a camera that sits here was there. The camera pictures go into the search engine is in the desk, and all of your readings and all of your experience goes into your desk and you can search for it. 1945. Jumping forward to about 2000, Gordon Bell, a famous American researcher, scientist, he worked for Microsoft in his later years, doing pretty much anything he wanted to do. And Microsoft allowed him to build this software called My Life Bits. It captured everything that Gordon experienced. Every TV show he watched, into the search engine. Everything he read, into the search engine. Everything he accessed online, into the search engine. He's wearing a wearable camera, an early one, okay, around his neck, into the search engine. And for those of you that come from a technology background, it was basically a database with metadata. It wasn't a search engine, it was just a database. But it was enough for Gordon to answer his questions about himself, which was, his motivation for doing this was he had a quadruple heart bypass. And he wanted to answer his doctor's questions. When the doctor says, when did you first feel this way? Gordon was going, I don't know, a few months ago, right? Gordon wanted to have the answers. And that's why he built My Life Bits. In fact, My Life Bits was almost a part of Windows 2007. I think it was actually almost in Windows, but they took it out at the last minute. That was quite a shame, I think. Anyway, in 2004, as a researcher, a very young researcher, I was at a conference in the UK called SIG-IOR, and Gordon was the keynote speaker. And I was doing PhD building search engines, and I thought this is the biggest search engine challenge in the world. Search engine for you, for me, for everybody. We all have our own individual search engines. So in 2006, I started capturing my own life experience using wearable sensors. Like in this case, a Google Glass capturing a picture of me taking a picture of Japan. And it looked kind of like this. No, let's go again. That should be a video, yes. That's what you get when you wear a Lifelog camera for a day. It was just before COVID, Myself and my colleagues were in Korea, having tea, having Korean barbecue, as you do in Korea, then going to an Irish bar and staying there for about 6 hours until we were asked to leave. Things got out of hand. The bar owner's wife walked out. Things got way out of hand. And we went back home and watched dog TV. Anyway, there's nothing of value in that data unless you have AI to analyze it. Nobody's going to look through that much data. So when we have these devices that we can wear, and be it Google Glass, be it a wearable camera device, or the early Microsoft ones, that really look kind of like this, ugly, nasty looking things. But they still gather all that data quite easily. And we think it's really useful because as you're a child, you can use this data to support knowledge creation. What did the teacher say? What did I learn? What was in that book I read? As you get older, you can use this to support your productivity at work. Can you be more productive by having this data? And as you're older again, maybe you care more about your health and your cognition and your memory, so you can build better tools and be better with this. So it could be, in our viewpoint, a permanent companion from the time you're a child to the time you're an older member of society. And when these tools are finally available, I honestly think that this will be the norm for people. Another source of data, another source of supporting technologies. I remember an example when we had Japanese TV crew in DCU a couple of years ago. We were explaining what we can do, and the lady, the producer of the TV show, she had a kid who was probably about 12 years old, and she was asking us, when is this going to be available? I want this on my 12-year-old. If they do better in school, I want this on my 12-year-old. Okay. So what clicked in my mind back then was, oh right, so if one of you has it in university or in school, everybody has to have it because it gives you an advantage. And that's why this will become a standard thing. Okay, so what do we mean by lifelog retrieval? If we have all this data, we have to be able to find something in it, right? Find content. There's no point in having data without finding something. So let's have a look at retrieval. And way back in about 2008, when we had our first wearable cameras, in fact, we got our first wearable cameras in 2006. Microsoft had a competition, Microsoft in Seattle, Microsoft Research. And they gave 6 research groups around the world 2 wearable cameras and $50,000 each. And 5 research groups in the US got a camera, and 1 research group outside the US got a camera and money, and that was us. And then we had a problem. So we had these 2 wearable cameras that you cannot even buy. Each one was individually numbered from Microsoft. And we were like, okay, who's going to wear the camera? Who? And basically research team was kind of like you guys sitting down there. My boss at the time would have said, okay, who's going to wear this? And everybody's head goes down. So I decided I'd wear it because I was going to go to Norway for 2 weeks. And I put on the camera, went to Norway, put on the camera, and then started to realize this is actually quite interesting. As a search engine scientist, it was really interesting. So I wore the camera for 2 weeks. That became a month. That became a year. That became 1 million images, and that became 17 years. And we're still doing it now. So we started off doing the simplest thing possible. Take 2,000 images a day from your viewpoint and build diaries automatically. We looked through all the day of data, and in this particular example right now, for about 30 minutes, I'm only seeing the same thing. 11 faces looking back, right? So we know that if there's 11 faces for 30 minutes, then that's going to be an event. An event is going to be 30 minutes long, that's giving a lecture. So we could analyze the week or the day and go, in the morning time you did these things, in the afternoon you did these, and in the evening you did this. We didn't even have to know what it was. We just need to know the change in data. That allowed us to build visual diaries. We still couldn't search it, but you could look at it. Now you could say to an older person, here's what you did yesterday. And when they see the data from their viewpoint, they remember better, okay? And this was really useful. We can take it a step further and analyze the data, as we did in this example, and categorize. We take the camera data and we look at what's the most important color in the camera data. And the most important color is actually what the camera thought was the most important color, not what we thought was most important. We'd look for the dominant color. It wasn't the average color, because the average color of an image is just going to be gray. Try it, it's actually going to be gray. Look at the dominant color right here, it's going to be red. Look around, look behind you. The dominant color in this room is red. So if I was to have my data back in this system right now, there'd be a half an hour red bar up here. I'm a computer scientist, that's my data. See the blue colors, light blue and dark blue? That's computers. That's in front of a screen. That's what the days look like as a computer science professor. Anyway, we did this, and that allowed us to click on a cell, click on a box, and view what's happening behind it, and you can see what you're doing at that point in time. It was interesting.
Cathal.
Yes.
Just a quick question. So all the light blues,
Screens.
are they signifying a particular type of action?
It's just literally, we aren't categorizing, we're just taking the dominant color. Right. And the dominant color doesn't change as you're doing the same thing. And the same thing at that point was just using the computer screen.
Okay.
The dominant color of a computer screen in the camera is that kind of color blue.
Right.
And here, for example, maybe the brown is you're doing something else. Yes, there's a time shift. If you look at this very carefully, there's a time shift from some days getting up at midnight to going to bed at 5 p.m. Literally, you're looking at, you're in Asia, you've moved to Ireland again. You're at a conference, you're back to Ireland. That's where you get the time shift, and it's 24 hours a day and the days a week. We then took this and did some more cool stuff like mapping the stress levels and understand where you're most stressed. I'll link that back to the image data behind to see what made you stressed. But I'm not going to show you that today. But that wasn't enough, because if I was to ask you a question about your past, the last time you had a bacon cheeseburger, we've all had bacon cheeseburgers. When was the last time you had one? Give me the time, give me the date. We don't remember, right? We don't remember dates, we don't remember times. So we had to build, we can't go back to a diary to find something, we have to have a search engine. Hence we built this first ever search engine 2010 or so. And this was used for some really interesting memory studies with partners in the UK. And basically it's like hotels.com for your life. I want to find all the times when I was talking to 5 or more people, and I was holding a coffee cup, and I was in Japan, and it was at night time and it was snowing. Whatever date that we can get our hands on, we could do this kind of search. And we found that comparing that interface to that interface, which is a visual diary, we could find any past memory 10 times faster and 3 times more successfully. We didn't lose memories, we could find them again when we went back using a search engine, right? So it became pretty clear to us that search engines were really, really important to find your past life experience. And we view this as your past life is in the search engine, right? So, we thought, let's build search engines. And then we thought, well, hang on, we're only a small research team of 10 people. We can't solve this problem. Okay, this is too big. So we set a challenge to our research community around the world and said, if we give you data, a month of a person's life, you build a search engine, and we'll come together and have a competition and see who wins the search engine competition. And it's something that we do quite often. We did it for the last, we've done it for about 10 years now. This was the last competition that took place in Greece. Yes, Greece, in June, and you see behind here is a scoreboard with 17 teams taking part. That means that 17 research groups around the world built 17 search engines, and they came to Greece at a certain point in time on a certain day for this competition. And here was a small video of what that looked like. Each desk was a search engine. Some people were taking part online, most came there. I want to pause and show you one good example. See this guy dancing? What? See the guy dancing? That team built a virtual reality version of a search engine. He has a virtual reality headset on. As he moves, he's querying the system. See? And this is how we make progress now, because it's about 4 hours long, like that. It's quite an exciting thing. Normally we do it with wine and with food, so it gets even better than you would imagine. So we try to figure out, well, what kind of information needs do you have when you've got a Lifelog? And we come up with these 3 different types of information need. Known item, ad hoc, and Q&A. Known item is find any image from your past life that meets an information need. Find a time I was drinking Guinness beer. Okay? Find me an image of that. And that's a really simple search engine task. The second one is ad hoc. Find as many images of something as you can. Find as many images as you can of me fishing. Okay? I don't go fishing often, so there's only that many images there. Or the final one is the most important one for us, Q&A. Answer a question about my past life. When was the first time Gordon felt like this? How often has Gordon actually taken his medication on time? Okay? Those kind of queries. And that's what we really want to get to. So looking at some examples. Known item. Here was a real known item query and the correct answer from our search engines. There was a man in the front row with a yellow hat on. That's all the people got who had built the search, the users got. And after 30 seconds, they got a bit more information and a bit more information to try to find the example. I was on a stage in a room with a lot of people watching. I was on some sort of panel and writing notes on paper. I remember a man had a blue sweater top on also. It was in France at ACM in 2019. So every 30 seconds you get more information to help it make it easier to find something. And this was being run over 18 months of data with 2,000 images a day. Find me the image that answers that question. It's a challenge, right? But this is what people are able to do now. The other example, ad hocs. Find examples when I was taking medications or vitamins at home. And a system can find that. Or find examples when I was wearing my yellow Happy Bee t-shirt. And that's quite interesting. That means find examples when I, as the wearer, was in a mirror wearing a certain piece of item of clothes. That's a nice, interesting challenge. But what's even better is this. Answer a question, please. I visited a famous Korean temple with friends a few years ago. What did I do immediately afterwards? Answer, get a coffee. The systems have to be able to answer the question. Okay. Or this other example here. Damn it, my car has a flat tire. What was the name of the car service repair company that I used in the summer of 2019? I want to call them to get my car fixed. That's a real world kind of query. And the systems can now answer that kind of question. Okay? They look for car repair shops. They will then look for the name of the car repair shop and answer the question for you. And this is our holy grail. This is what we want to get at, right? Another example query from last year. Which airline did I fly most often with in 2019? That's a really hard query to solve. Okay? How many times do you fly in 2019? Which airline were you on every time? How do you even know what airline you were on unless you get the check-in counter, right? But there were people able to solve that too, and the answer was Turkish Airlines. This is where we want to get to, and this is where we are at right now. So what do people do with state of the art? I'll finish up in a moment. 3 example systems I want to show you briefly. VR systems, virtual reality, think movies. People build these kind of systems. No query systems, where you want to browse the system without having queries. The best system based on embedding models. For computer scientists, that'll mean something. Novel interfaces. Here was the winning system in 2018. It was in a virtual reality environment. There was whatever number of months of data behind this, and you type a query by using like almost keyword selection into a query, and then you get a big long wall that goes on forever. You scroll through the wall, that's your ranked list of results. You find the one you want, you press submit. It was really nice as a system to use. Paper there, reference there, and architecture diagram for those that want to know. This was probably my favorite system, a no query system. A search engine that doesn't require queries for your life. You basically choose an example image that is relevant to what you want to see. Like, I care about my diet, so show me, here's a picture of food. And you say, I want to see more pictures of, in this case, people cycling, and the other stuff doesn't matter. And then the system builds a dynamic AI model that looks for cycling pictures. And you go through refining, and eventually you're meant to find what you like. It doesn't really work. So the added, if you look at the very top, a query bar on top. And then finally, this was the best system. And I would love to give you a demo, but we broke it. So maybe I'll do a demo next time. And this is what the state-of-the-art Lifelog search engine looks like. Unfortunately, I can't show it to you today. It looks like this. You can type a query of anything. Find a time I was cutting flowers in Norway. Okay? You can say what happened before then, what happened after then. So find a time I was cutting flowers in Norway. Beforehand, I was at dinner. Afterwards, I went to the swimming pool. And a system will find exactly what you want to see. Give you a rank list, what you want to see, what happened before, what happened after. You have map-based interfaces, and you can pretty much find anything you want really, really quickly, really, really successfully. The AI models behind this isn't an AI talk, but the models that work behind this search engine for visual data, they've been trained on hundreds of millions of web images. So whenever you do a Google image search, those the things you click on, and then you go away from the Google image search. When you do that image search, the systems, the AI systems are learning. They put a query in for golden Buddha in Thailand, and they clicked on this image and they were happy, they went away. So the system learns what a golden Buddha in Thailand is like. And since billions of people use Google image search, they've got billions of queries over hundreds of millions or billions of images. They have an answer, an AI model, for any kind of query that you want to put into the system. And then we basically apply that AI model over to Lifelog data, and then it can find anything from our Lifelog data. So if we wanted to put a query in like praying to a golden Buddha in a tunnel in Thailand, which was a query in the past, the systems knew what we were looking for and gave us back the images of praying to a golden Buddha in Thailand, in a tunnel in Thailand. So the systems work really, really well now. So if you want to see, there's lots of papers out about this. But, here's the big but. You put on a smartwatch, monitor your heart rate, your sleep patterns. It only monitors you. You put on a camera, it monitors everybody else. And in theory, doesn't monitor you, okay? Because you're not going to be captured by the in the mirror. And this is a problem. Ethics, privacy, right to be forgotten. Where's the balance here? Where's the balance between somebody's ability or somebody's right to have a memory support tool for somebody with Alzheimer's versus your right not to be in somebody's picture walking down the street? Where's the issue there? But I'll say a few things. We've done a lot of work on anonymization. So we blur faces automatically. We have quite nice tools that blur faces at query time, not at indexing time. So if you become my friend, you can suddenly appear in the search engine with your face unblurred. And the first version of this there, it worked really well for capturing all the faces, but we didn't think to blur the name tags, name badges. So there's a lot of work in this space to try to make sure this works really well. It's always possible to identify somebody who maybe have a prominent tattoo. We haven't figured some of those things out yet, or tattoos on the hand, okay? But since Lifelog data actually has, I've only looked at images because we have a very short talk today, audio, spoken words, all the other stuff that can go in there, you can be identified by your voice. How do we solve that, okay? How do we solve a location? If you've got a location log with your image log, we know where you go to, where you live. Is that a privacy issue? Steve Mann, professor from the University of Toronto, coined the phrase surveillance. His point is this: if society watches you, you should be able to watch society. His point is surveillance is all around us. When I use my car, I've logged in with my Google account. Google knows everywhere I go to. Right? Every time I ask for directions, I ask my car and it takes me where I want to go. Google knows. CCTV cameras, in theory, can know, right? You walk out in the street, you're captured on cameras. And Steve Mann's idea is that the watcher should be watched. It's a bit dystopian, but his point is, if I can be accused of something, I want to defend myself. Now in the era of deepfakes, I can be accused of anything. Anybody can make a video of me doing or saying anything, and how do I prove that I didn't do or say something? I need a lifelog. I need my own data. I need my own truth. And my own truth is what exists in the lifelog. And that's Steve Mann's point. Surveillance. The little person is looking up at the society looking down. This is my right, my backup, right? Some thoughts after a decade, then I'm finished because I'm probably over time. This will happen. It has started. Lifelogs and wearable computing are an inevitability. As we're in a society where truth is fake, we need our own truth. You will be able to do this for yourself and for your own protection and for your own healthcare and for your own education and learning. Lifelog is actually the correct memory of the individual, not what goes in here. I didn't talk about it, but we've done enough memory science experiments over the past few years to know that what goes in here, or what comes out of here, is massively incorrect. But we don't actually even know it's incorrect because we don't have any truth to base it off, and the truth is a lifelog. If you ask Gordon Bell about his memory, he says his memory is in this computer, and this is his index to the memory to find the memory. And I tend to agree with that. And however, if you do this, bear in mind one thing: the lifelog will outlive the individual. Even though we assume, one point when we build Lifelogs, that it's your private data. Nobody ever sees what captures in your Lifelog from wearable cameras, from microphones, from your biometrics, from your locations, from your computer usage, whatever data we gather. However, in reality, someday, somebody is going to see that data. So be a little bit careful when you do this. We do have a book from 10 years ago. I'm trying to download that. It's quite easy to do, a Lifelog Personal Big Data. It's very accessible as a book that talks about this kind of work. The technology is 10 years out of date almost, but the concepts are still there. And I will say thank you very much. That was over long, but hopefully that was somewhat interesting. Any questions before we get somebody else up to?
Is there any fear that if in the future these become ubiquitous, that they will be used for mass surveillance?
So that's a really super question. What happens if the government comes along, the government, whoever that, I'm not saying the government in the Irish government, but an organisation that has some control over your life says, I need to see that. Yeah. What happens if the police say, I need to see that there was a crime committed? I don't know. I'm going to plead the fifth and say we're only building the search engines to make it useful. But in theory, absolutely, somebody, some organisation could come along and demand to see your Lifelog. Can you say to the police, no, you can't see my Lifelog, if they come looking for you with a warrant? Yeah. What do Apple do with their iPhone? They say they don't allow the security to, or the police to access the iPhone data. They say that, but in some cases they have, right? When it's a national security threat. Are we all going to be national security threats? I don't know, but it's a super question. When the data's there, the data becomes a target. And the data changes lots of things about society once the data's there.
And when you say someone could store their whole life on a 100-euro hard drive,
yeah,
what capacity is that?
8 to 10 terabytes. If you take, I've got 17 years, that sits in around about 2.5 terabytes. Not that much data. 2 images a minute. You have pretty high compression on that, so it looks fine. A $100 hard drive was our target for a lifetime. And right now we can fit a lifetime on a $100 hard drive. And as you go forward, $100 hard drive gets bigger and bigger and bigger, so even if you move towards more video-based data, it still fits on a $100 hard drive. $100 is something we always thought was affordable for an individual.
And the Lifelogger itself?
The camera, that's really much harder. The camera takes 8 megapixel images, 2 a minute, but it's
Oh, I meant in terms of price.
Oh, price. Okay, so this is a good question. We're trying to build our own because we don't have any good ones on the market at the moment. Typically, they would cost about $300, give or take. But I don't think this is what people are going to wear. Nobody's going to buy this, okay? Because we will end up moving to this. How big can your smartphone get? Right? We got foldable phones. We're going to have foldable phones that fold out again and again. No, here is your interface. Okay? This is your screen coming in the future. Sure, Google Glass didn't work, but I would argue Google Glass did work because Google Glass sold hundreds of thousands at $1,500 each. Google made a lot of money out of Google Glass, okay? And they learned a lot. Every major computer company is building wearable camera glasses. It's coming. And then that means a Lifelog, the visual, the audio, the location, the biometrics, becomes an app that you download to your device. When it becomes an app on your device, don't worry about the cost of the device because it's only going to be a monthly subscription. And then you will have your Lifelog.
Just going back to your point on like federal agents demanding information, do you think cameras or glasses will become like a de facto thing where they say, like, you know, as a human being, you have to have a PPS number, and you know, you have to have glasses?
Black Mirror, the entire history of you, if you ever saw that episode, that was a requirement to enter the airport. I need to see your last 24 hours, please. Zoom, scan through, you did nothing wrong. I don't think it'll be a requirement, but I think it will be something that you want to have because A, you will have productivity and learning benefits. You'll have health benefits. You will have self-protection benefits. We still haven't got to the stage where, I'm assuming that hasn't happened to anybody, where somebody has come along and tried to scam you by saying, here's a video of you being racist in the march down Dublin last week. But we're only a matter of time before people are getting singled out like that. We can see Tom Cruise saying something on deepfakes. You can see US president saying things, Donald Trump saying stuff he never said. This stuff now looks so real. When it becomes so cheap that any kid with a smartphone can generate deepfakes, you need your own protection. And where does your protection come from? It comes from your LifeLog. I don't see there's any way around it. Just like we need burglar alarms in houses. It's kind of a de facto thing now, because society has brought us to that point. It's the same thing, I think. I think there'll be enough benefits from this that we will do it anyway, and the question is, which company do we trust to look after it on our behalf, because it's a big deal to look after your own LifeLog. I can't do it, and I'm a computer science professor. So I need all the PhDs building the tools to help us do this. Any other questions? Okay, super, thank you.